The threshold of consciousness. The moment between waking and dreaming. Welcome. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes and breathe gently. Right now, in this stillness, consider something that has touched nearly every human being who has ever lived. Have you ever awakened in the middle of the night completely conscious, yet unable to move even a single finger? Have you felt a presence in your room, something watching you from the shadows, something that felt absolutely real, yet vanished the instant you could move again? This experience exists in a place that science is only beginning to understand. It lives in the space between two worlds. On one side lies the realm of waking consciousness, where logic governs your perception and your body responds to your will. On the other side lies the world of dreams, where your mind creates entire universes from nothing, where physics bends to emotion, and where fear can feel more real than breathing. Sleep paralysis is not a disorder. It is not a sign of illness or weakness. Rather, it represents a moment when your brain becomes trapped between these two realities. Your conscious mind awakens, fully aware, fully present, yet your body remains locked in the state it was in during REM sleep, the stage where your most vivid dreams occur. And in that moment of disconnection, something extraordinary and terrifying happens. Your brain, suddenly aware but unable to move, begins to search for meaning. It cannot accept the paradox of consciousness without control, and so it creates. It creates presences, it creates entities, it creates demons that feel more real than the walls around you. These are not fantasies born from imagination. They are the product of a brain in crisis, attempting to interpret a reality that contradicts everything it knows about how the world works. Before we begin this journey into the architecture of fear and the neurobiology of these encounters, I ask you to subscribe to the Relaxing Science channel. Give this video a like and share your location and the time where you are right now. This helps us understand where our listeners are, and it connects us across the world in a shared exploration of the mysteries of the human mind. The story we are about to tell is one that unfolds not in the external world, but within the vast landscape of your own consciousness. It is a story written in the language of neurotransmitters and neural circuits. It is a story where fear is not an enemy, but a messenger. And it is a story that, once understood, can transform the way you experience these episodes forever. What happens during sleep paralysis is not random. It is not supernatural. It is the result of precise biological mechanisms that have evolved over millions of years to protect you. Yet in this particular state, those same protective mechanisms become the architects of terror. They transform your bedroom into a haunted space. They turn silence into the presence of something watching. They make your own mind feel like a stranger to you. Throughout this exploration, we will move through the landscape of your brain. We will visit the amygdala, the ancient structure that generates fear and processes threat. We will encounter the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic and reason, and discover why it becomes silent when you need it most. We will examine how memory works during these episodes and why your mind reaches back into your deepest fears to populate the darkness around you. We will understand the physical sensations that accompany these experiences. The pressure on your chest is not imaginary. It is not a demon sitting on you, though it certainly feels that way. It is your respiratory system caught in a state of confusion, your body attempting to breathe while your muscles remain paralyzed. This sensation is real, even though its cause is entirely neurological. We will explore why different cultures throughout history have interpreted these experiences in different ways. The incubus of medieval Europe, the shadow person of modern America, the jinn of Islamic tradition, the nightmare demon of Japanese folklore. All of these entities are real to the people who experience them, yet they are all expressions of the same underlying neurological phenomenon, filtered through the lens of cultural belief and personal memory. This is not a video that will tell you the experience is all in your head. Your consciousness is real. Your fear is real. The presence you feel is real, even if it exists only within the neural networks of your brain. What we are exploring together is how your magnificent, complex mind can generate such profound experiences of terror and presence, and how understanding this process can bring you peace. As you listen, allow yourself to settle into a comfortable position. There is no need to be afraid of this knowledge. Understanding the mechanism of fear is the first step toward transforming how you experience it. Science and poetry meet here in this threshold space where your mind touches something that feels infinite and eternal. The Guardian's Paradox. Why your amygdala activates during sleep paralysis. Deep within the structures of your brain, buried beneath layers of newer neural tissue, sits a small almond-shaped region called the amygdala. This ancient part of your mind has existed for millions of years. It has watched over your ancestors through countless dangers. It has kept them alive in forests filled with predators and in environments where a single moment of inattention could mean death. The amygdala is your brain's guardian, your sentinel, your protector against threat. But the amygdala does not think the way your conscious mind thinks. It does not evaluate situations logically. It does not wait for evidence before reacting. Instead, it operates on a principle of radical efficiency. When the amygdala detects something that might be dangerous, it does not pause to verify. It does not consult with reason. It simply activates the alarm. It floods your body with stress hormones. It prepares every muscle, every organ, every cell for action. This is why you can be startled by a shadow on the wall. This is why a sudden sound in the night can make your heart race before your conscious mind even processes what made the noise. Your amygdala is asking not whether something is definitely dangerous, but whether it might be dangerous. And in that uncertainty, it errs on the side of caution. This system has kept humans alive for millennia. Now imagine what happens when your amygdala activates during sleep paralysis. Your conscious mind has just awakened. You are aware, you are alert, but you cannot move. Your muscles are locked in the paralysis that protects you during dreams, that keeps your body from acting out the scenarios your mind is creating while you sleep. In this state, your amygdala does what it has always done. It perceives a threat. The threat is not external, it is internal. It is the paradox of consciousness without control. Your amygdala senses something profoundly wrong. Your mind is awake, but your body will not obey. This is not normal. This is not how the world should work. And to the amygdala, anything abnormal is potentially dangerous. So it does exactly what it was designed to do. It activates fully. It sends alarm signals throughout your nervous system. In this state of maximal amygdala activation, your perception of the world fundamentally changes. Colors seem more vivid, shadows seem darker, sounds become louder and more menacing. Your sense of smell heightens. Every stimulus from the environment is now being filtered through a lens of fear. Your amygdala is essentially asking your brain to find the threat, and your brain, eager to comply, begins to search. This is the moment when the presence begins to form. Your amygdala has activated your brain's threat detection systems, and now your mind is primed to find danger. The shadows in your room are no longer neutral. They become possible hiding places. The sound of your own breathing becomes something external, something other. The darkness itself becomes pregnant with meaning. The paradox lies in this. The amygdala is doing exactly what it should be doing. It is protecting you. It is keeping you safe. But in the context of sleep paralysis, what it is protecting you from does not exist in the external world. There is no predator in your room. There is no threat beyond your locked door. The danger that the amygdala senses exists only in the mismatch between consciousness and paralysis. Yet this mismatch is real. Your brain is encountering a state that it has no reference for in normal waking life. You are conscious, but you cannot move. You are awake, but you are still partially in the dream state. This is genuinely disorienting at a neurological level. Your amygdala is not malfunctioning. It is responding appropriately to an inappropriate situation. As the amygdala maintains its state of high alert, it begins to modulate other systems in your brain. It influences how you perceive time. It affects your memory retrieval. It changes how your sensory cortex interprets incoming signals. Under the influence of the amygdala's fear response, a gentle breeze becomes an icy touch. A creak in the house becomes footsteps. The darkness itself becomes a presence. The activation of the amygdala during sleep paralysis is not momentary. It sustains itself. The longer you remain paralyzed, the longer your amygdala remains activated. And the longer it remains activated, the more convinced your mind becomes that there is something in the room with you. This creates a feedback loop, a cycle that reinforces itself. What makes this experience so profoundly real is that the amygdala is not just generating emotion, it is generating a complete, integrated experience. When your amygdala activates, it does not simply make you feel scared, it makes you perceive threat. It makes your brain construct an interpretation of your environment that is consistent with the presence of danger. Your mind is not lying to you, it is solving a problem. The problem is, why can't I move? And the answer it generates is, because there is something preventing me from moving. Understanding the amygdala's role in sleep paralysis is not about dismissing your experience as just emotion. Emotion is not separate from perception. Emotion is not less real than logic. The amygdala is creating a genuine perception of threat, even though the threat exists only in the mismatch between consciousness and paralysis. Your fear is real. Your perception of presence is real. The amygdala is doing what it has always done. It is simply doing it in a context where that response creates terror rather than survival. The silent prefrontal cortex. When logic abandons you behind your forehead, just beneath the bone of your brow, lies a region of your brain that is uniquely human. The prefrontal cortex is the seat of your rational mind. It is where logic resides. It is where you evaluate evidence, weigh options, and make decisions based on reason rather than instinct. The prefrontal cortex is the voice that says, "Wait, let me think about this," when your amygdala is screaming that you are in danger. In normal waking life, your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala are in constant conversation. When something startles you, your amygdala generates an immediate fear response. But within milliseconds, your prefrontal cortex evaluates the situation. It looks at the evidence. It recalls memories. It reasons. And in most cases, it concludes that you are safe. The threat is not real. The shadow is just a shadow. The sound is just the house settling. Your prefrontal cortex tells your amygdala to stand down, and the fear subsides. But during sleep paralysis, something extraordinary happens. Your prefrontal cortex becomes almost completely silent. The very region of your brain that is responsible for logical reasoning, for evaluating evidence, for distinguishing between real threats and perceived threats, essentially shuts down. And in that silence, your amygdala becomes the only voice speaking. This happens because of the neurochemistry of sleep. During REM sleep, the stage in which you experience your most vivid dreams and in which sleep paralysis occurs, your brain reduces the production of certain neurotransmitters. Serotonin levels drop significantly. Norepinephrine, a chemical that enhances attention and focus, becomes scarce. These are the very chemicals that your prefrontal cortex needs to function at its highest level. Without them, the logical regions of your brain become sluggish, disconnected, and eventually dormant. Meanwhile, other neurochemical systems remain active. The amygdala continues to receive signals. Your emotional processing systems remain engaged. The brain regions responsible for generating vivid sensory experiences continue to create the detailed hallucinations that characterize dreams. So when you awaken during REM sleep, you become conscious while your brain is still bathed in the neurochemistry of dreaming. In this state, your prefrontal cortex cannot do its job. It cannot evaluate the situation logically. It cannot tell you that the presence you feel is not real. It cannot remind you of the laws of physics that make a demon sitting on your chest impossible. It cannot access the rational knowledge that you are safe in your bed, in your locked room, in your home. The voice of reason is simply not available. And so your mind, now conscious but without the capacity to reason, must make sense of its paralysis and its terror using only the tools that remain available. These tools are emotion, memory, and sensory perception. Your mind becomes like a person who has awakened in a foreign country without the ability to speak the language. It can perceive what is around it. It can feel, but it cannot think in the way it normally does. The silence of the prefrontal cortex is not a failure of your brain. It is a consequence of the state you are in. Your brain did not malfunction. Your brain did not suddenly lose the ability to think logically. Rather, the neurochemistry that supports logical thinking has temporarily withdrawn from the stage. The spotlight has been taken from the regions of reason and given entirely to the regions of emotion and sensation. This is why during sleep paralysis, you cannot simply reason yourself out of fear. You cannot tell yourself, this is not real. This is just sleep paralysis. You might be able to form these thoughts, but they have no power to calm you. Your prefrontal cortex, the region that would normally integrate these rational thoughts and use them to regulate your fear, is not available to do that work. You are essentially a conscious mind without access to its own reasoning power. Consider how different this is from fear in waking life. If you are walking alone at night and you hear a sound, your amygdala activates, but immediately your prefrontal cortex engages. You look around, you assess the situation, you remember that you have walked this street many times before. You reason that the sound was probably an animal or the wind. Your fear subsides. The two systems work together. But during sleep paralysis, they do not work together. One is shouting, and the other is asleep. The amygdala is in full activation, generating the most intense fear you might ever experience. And the prefrontal cortex, the only part of your brain that could potentially talk you down from that fear, is essentially offline. You are left with terror without the capacity to reason your way through it. What makes this experience even more intense is that without the moderating influence of the prefrontal cortex, your amygdala's interpretation of the situation goes unchallenged. Your mind asks itself, why can't I move? Why am I so afraid? And without the voice of reason to offer an alternative explanation, the answer that emerges from your emotional brain is accepted as truth. There is something in the room. There is a presence. There is an entity. This must be why I cannot move. This must be why I am so afraid. The silence of the prefrontal cortex during sleep paralysis is one of the most important keys to understanding why these experiences feel so real, so compelling, and so utterly convincing. You are not crazy. You are not imagining things. You are experiencing a genuine state in which your conscious mind has been separated from its capacity to reason. In that separation, terror becomes the only logic available. Memory's Phantom Gallery: how your brain retrieves fear from the past. Your brain is not a camera that records experiences and plays them back unchanged. It is more like a vast library where every memory is stored not as a fixed document, but as a pattern of connections between neurons. When you retrieve a memory, you are not pulling out a file. You are reconstructing that memory from thousands of neural connections, some of which have shifted since the memory was first stored. During sleep paralysis, when your amygdala is fully activated and your prefrontal cortex is silent, your brain begins to search through this library of memories. It is searching for something specific. It is searching for past experiences of fear, past moments when you felt helpless, past times when you encountered something that threatened you. Your amygdala is asking your memory systems, have we experienced something like this before? What did it look like? This is where memory becomes dangerous, not because memories are inaccurate, though they often are, but because in the state of sleep paralysis, your brain is not accessing neutral memories. It is accessing memories that have been colored by fear. It is retrieving the most frightening moments of your life and using them as templates for what might be in your room right now. Consider the memories that might be available to your brain during this moment. Perhaps you saw something frightening as a child, a shadow that seemed to move in the corner of your room, a figure glimpsed in a window, an image from a horror film that stayed with you, a story someone told you about something supernatural. These memories are not sitting in your brain as mere facts. They are stored as emotional experiences. They are stored with the fear attached to them. When your amygdala activates during sleep paralysis, it sends signals to your memory systems that essentially say, retrieve the scariest things we know. And your memory systems, eager to comply, begin to surface these frightening recollections. But here is where the process becomes creative. Your brain does not simply recall the memory, it uses the memory as raw material to construct a perception of your current environment. So if you once saw a shadow figure, your brain might reconstruct that shadow in the corner of your room right now. If you once heard a frightening sound, Your brain might interpret the ambient sounds around you as that same frightening sound. If you once felt a sense of presence, your brain might generate that same sense of presence, but now localized to your bedroom. Your memories are not being retrieved as memories. They are being used to construct a hallucination that feels like perception. This process is not conscious. You are not deliberately thinking, "Let me imagine a demon based on the scary things I have experienced." Rather, the process is automatic. Your amygdala has activated your memory systems in a particular way, asking for fear-associated content. Your memory systems have provided that content, and your sensory processing regions have woven that content into a hallucination that feels like something you are perceiving in real time. Different people will experience different entities during sleep paralysis, and this difference is almost entirely explained by differences in memory. A person raised in a culture with strong beliefs in demons will have memories associated with demons, stories about demons, images of demons. When their amygdala activates during sleep paralysis, these memories become available, and their brain constructs a demon. A person raised in a culture with beliefs in alien abductions will have different memories, and their brain will construct an alien. This is not to say that the experience is just memory. The experience is a genuine hallucination, a real perception, constructed from memory, but experienced as something external. It is the difference between imagining a face and seeing a face that is not there. Both involve your brain generating an image, but when you see a face that is not there, the experience is fundamentally different from when you imagine a face. The hallucination feels like perception. Your memory systems are also retrieving emotional content during sleep paralysis. They are retrieving not just images or sounds, but the feelings associated with those images and sounds. When you once experienced something frightening, that fear is encoded along with the memory. When your memory systems retrieve that memory during sleep paralysis, they retrieve the fear as well. This is why the presence you feel is not just visually frightening, it is emotionally overwhelming. Your brain has retrieved not just the image of fear, but the feeling of fear itself. This process also explains why sleep paralysis experiences often feel personal. The entity that appears is not random. It is constructed from your own memories, your own fears, your own psychological history. In a very real sense, the demon you encounter during sleep paralysis is a creation of your own mind, built from your own experiences. It is deeply personal. It is uniquely yours, and that is part of what makes it so terrifying. Your mind is attacking you with your own fears. The memory systems of your brain are also engaged in what might be called pattern completion. Your brain has learned over your entire lifetime what patterns go together. Darkness goes with threat. Paralysis goes with danger. A sense of presence goes with something malevolent. When your amygdala activates during sleep paralysis, it activates these learned patterns. Your brain expects to find a threat in the darkness, and so it constructs one. This is an adaptive system in normal circumstances. If you are in a dangerous situation, it is useful for your brain to activate all the fear-related memories and patterns it has learned. It helps you respond quickly and appropriately. But during sleep paralysis, this same adaptive system becomes maladaptive. It activates fear memories and threat patterns in a situation where there is no actual threat. Your brain's wisdom becomes your torment. The weight on your chest, understanding the physical sensation. One of the most distinctive features of sleep paralysis is the sensation of pressure on your chest. For many people, this is the most terrifying aspect of the experience. It feels as though something is sitting on you, pressing down on you, suffocating you. This sensation is so vivid, so real that it seems impossible that it could be anything other than a physical entity. Something must be there. Something must be pressing down. Yet this sensation is not caused by an external force. Nothing is actually sitting on your chest. The pressure you feel is generated entirely by your own nervous system, by the interaction between your respiratory system and your state of paralysis. Understanding this mechanism can be profoundly reassuring because it reveals that what feels like an external attack is actually an internal miscommunication. When you are in REM sleep, your brain does something remarkable. It paralyzes your muscles. This paralysis is called REM atonia, and it serves an important purpose. Without it, you would act out your dreams, You would flail your arms when you dreamed of fighting. You would run when you dreamed of fleeing. This would be dangerous for you and for anyone sleeping near you. So your brain paralyzes your muscles during REM sleep. It essentially disconnects your conscious intentions from your body's movements. But your respiratory muscles are different. Your diaphragm, the muscle beneath your lungs that controls breathing, is not completely paralyzed during REM sleep. It cannot be, because you need to keep breathing while you sleep. So your breathing continues, even though your voluntary muscles are paralyzed. Your body is breathing automatically, guided by the unconscious systems that control respiration. Now imagine what happens when you become conscious during REM sleep. Your mind awakens. You are aware. You want to move, but your muscles are still paralyzed. You try to move and nothing happens. This creates a profound conflict within your nervous system. Your conscious mind is sending signals that say move. Your body is not responding. Your brain interprets this conflict as a problem that needs to be solved. At the same time, your breathing is still operating on automatic systems. You are breathing, but your conscious mind is not controlling that breathing. You cannot voluntarily change your breathing rate or depth because the systems that would normally allow you to do that are offline. Your breathing is shallow, irregular, and somewhat chaotic. This is because your automatic breathing systems are not receiving the normal feedback they would get if your body were moving and responding to your will. Your conscious mind now perceives two problems simultaneously. First, you cannot move. Second, you are having difficulty breathing. Your brain, in its attempt to solve these problems, generates a hypothesis. Something is preventing you from moving, and something is preventing you from breathing. Something is sitting on you. Something is pressing down on your chest. This hypothesis is reinforced by the actual physical sensations you are experiencing. Your breathing is shallow and labored. Your chest muscles are not responding to your will. There is tension in your respiratory system. These sensations are real. They are not imaginary, but they are being misinterpreted. Your brain is attributing them to an external cause when they are actually caused by the internal conflict between your conscious mind and your paralyzed body. The sensation of pressure can be incredibly intense. Some people describe it as a weight of hundreds of pounds. Some describe it as an invisible hand pressing down. Some describe it as a suffocating force. The intensity of this sensation is partly due to the fact that your amygdala is fully activated. When your amygdala is active, all sensations become amplified. Pain feels worse, pressure feels heavier, discomfort becomes agony. There is also a component of hyperventilation involved in many sleep paralysis experiences. As your conscious mind tries desperately to move, it sends signals throughout your body. Your muscles tense. Your breathing becomes even more shallow and rapid. This hyperventilation can cause your blood oxygen to fluctuate, which can itself cause sensations of chest tightness and difficulty breathing. So the pressure you feel might be a combination of actual chest tension, actual breathing difficulty, and the interpretation of these sensations by your amygdala-dominated brain. What makes this sensation particularly frightening is that it directly threatens one of your body's most fundamental needs, the ability to breathe. Your brain is programmed to fear suffocation. The inability to breathe is one of the most primal threats that exists. So when your brain generates the sensation of pressure on your chest and the sensation of difficult breathing, it is activating some of your deepest survival instincts. Yet here is the profound truth. You are breathing. Even though it feels like you cannot breathe, you are breathing. Your automatic respiratory systems are working. Your lungs are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. You will not suffocate. The sensation of suffocation is real, but the danger of suffocation is not. Your body is protecting you, even as your mind perceives an attack. Understanding the mechanism of this sensation can be liberating. It means that the pressure on your chest is not caused by a demon or a supernatural entity. It is not caused by an alien or an intruder. It is caused by the normal functioning of your respiratory system in conflict with the temporary paralysis of your voluntary muscles. It is your own body creating this sensation. And if your body is creating it, then your body can also survive it. Entities born from silence, the architecture of hallucinations. In the darkness of your room during sleep paralysis, something takes shape. It begins as a sense of presence, a feeling that you are not alone. But this feeling quickly becomes more concrete. It becomes a figure. It becomes a shape. It becomes an entity that seems to exist in the space between the shadows and the darkness. This entity is a hallucination, but calling it just a hallucination fails to capture the profound reality of the experience. A hallucination is not a failure of perception, it is an alternative form of perception. When you hallucinate, your brain is generating a sensory experience without external sensory input. But the experience is generated using the same neural systems that process actual sensory information. Your brain is not making up something that is completely divorced from reality. It is constructing something that uses the same rules, the same logic, the same neural architecture as real perception. During sleep paralysis, your hallucination is constructed from multiple sources. There is your memory, as we discussed. There is your visual system, which continues to process the actual light entering your eyes, but which is now being heavily influenced by your amygdala and your emotional state. There is your sense of proprioception, your awareness of where your body is in space, which is now confused because your body is not responding to your will. And there is your sense of presence, your ability to detect whether another conscious being is near you, which is now misfiring. The sense of presence is particularly important to understanding the architecture of hallucinations during sleep paralysis. Humans have evolved a sophisticated system for detecting the presence of other conscious beings. You can often sense when someone is looking at you, even if you are not looking at them. You can feel when someone enters a room, even if you do not see or hear them. This sense of presence is mediated by a combination of subtle sensory cues and neural systems that are exquisitely attuned to the presence of other minds. During sleep paralysis, this system misfires spectacularly. Your brain is in a state of high alert, your amygdala is searching for threat, and your presence detection systems activate, generating the intense feeling that someone or something is in the room with you. This feeling is not based on actual sensory input. It is generated by your brain's interpretation of your internal state, but it feels as real as any sensory perception. Your visual system contributes to this hallucination as well. Even though your eyes might be closed or you might be in darkness, your visual cortex is still active. In fact, during REM sleep, your visual cortex is very active, generating the images you see in dreams. When you awaken during REM sleep, your visual cortex is still in this active state. It is still generating imagery. But now that you are conscious, you interpret this imagery as something you are seeing in your environment rather than something your brain is generating. The entity that appears during sleep paralysis is often perceived as a shadow or a dark figure. This makes sense, given how your visual system is functioning during this state. Your brain is generating imagery that is compatible with the darkness around you. It is generating imagery that fits the threat hypothesis that your amygdala is proposing. A dark figure is more consistent with threat in darkness than a bright figure would be. A shadow is more consistent with something hiding than a clearly visible form would be. The entity often has particular characteristics. It is often perceived as watching you. It often seems to move closer as the episode progresses. It often seems to be focusing its attention on you specifically. These characteristics are not random. They reflect the way your threat detection systems function. Your brain is asking, what kind of threat would explain my paralysis and my fear? The answer that emerges is something that is watching you, something that is focusing on you, something that intends harm toward you. The entity also often seems to have agency. It seems to be doing something, it seems to have intentions, it seems to be acting. This is because your brain is generating not just a visual image, but a full interpretation of a conscious being. Your social brain, the systems that allow you to understand other minds, are being activated. Your brain is generating not just the perception of a figure, but the perception of a mind behind that figure, a consciousness that is attending to you. What is remarkable is how convincing this hallucination is. It is not a vague, dreamlike image. It is often sharp and clear. It is often detailed. It is often more vivid than actual perception. This is because your amygdala has heightened your sensory processing. Everything is being perceived with enhanced clarity. The hallucination is being generated with the same intensity and detail as real perception would be. The hallucination often persists even as you try to reason about it. You might think, this cannot be real, this is sleep paralysis, but the hallucination continues. You might close your eyes, but you still see the entity. You might try to ignore it, but you still feel its presence. This is because the hallucination is not generated by a part of your brain that you can easily override with conscious will. It is generated by the deep, emotional regions of your brain that are in charge during this state. The entity that appears is often described as malevolent. It is not a friendly presence. It is not a helpful being. It is something that feels hostile, something that feels dangerous, something that feels like it intends harm. This reflects the emotional state of your brain during sleep paralysis. Your amygdala is activated. Your brain is in threat detection mode. So any entity that your brain generates will be interpreted as a threat. Your brain is not capable of generating a friendly hallucination in this state. Every hallucination is filtered through the lens of fear. The shadow in the corner. Why you always see something watching across cultures and across centuries. People who experience sleep paralysis report remarkably similar entities. They see shadows in corners. They see dark figures at the foot of their beds. They see presences that seem to be watching them. They see entities that move closer as the episode progresses. This consistency is striking. It suggests that there is something fundamental about how the human brain generates hallucinations during sleep paralysis. The reason people so often see something in the corner or at the edges of their visual field is related to how your visual system functions during this state. When you are conscious but paralyzed, you cannot turn your head. You cannot move your eyes as freely as you would normally. Your vision is therefore more limited. You can see what is directly in front of you, but you cannot easily scan the room. This limited visual field creates a sense of vulnerability. You cannot see everything. Something could be approaching from outside your field of vision. Your brain interprets this vulnerability as a threat, and it generates an entity that exists in the space you cannot see. The corner of your room becomes a hiding place. The shadows become a refuge for something that is watching you. Your brain is essentially solving the problem of your helplessness by generating an entity that explains your helplessness. Something is there in the space you cannot see. That is why you are afraid. That is why you cannot move. The entity is often perceived as watching you. This is not accidental. Your brain has evolved sophisticated systems for detecting when you are being observed. You have a sense of whether someone is looking at you. This sense is so acute that you can sometimes feel when someone is staring at the back of your head, even if you cannot see them. During sleep paralysis, this sense of being watched becomes overwhelming. Your brain generates not just the perception of a presence, but the perception of a presence that is attending to you. That is focusing on you, that is watching you. Why does the entity watch? Because watching is a sign of predatory attention. A predator watches its prey before attacking. Your amygdala, in its search for an explanation for your paralysis, generates an entity that is doing what a predator would do. It is watching, it is waiting, it is preparing to act. This is the behavior that would make sense of your inability to move. If something is watching you, preparing to attack, then of course you cannot move. Of course you are paralyzed with fear. The entity often seems to move closer as the episode progresses. This is the most frightening part of many sleep paralysis experiences. The presence that was distant becomes nearer. The shadow that was in the corner moves toward your bed. The figure that was at the foot of your bed moves closer to your face. This progression reflects the escalating intensity of your amygdala's activation. As time passes and you remain paralyzed, your fear increases. And as your fear increases, your hallucination becomes more intense and more threatening. This progression also reflects the way threat detection systems work. If you perceive a threat, you monitor it. If the threat appears to be approaching, you escalate your defensive response. Your amygdala is doing exactly this. As your perceived threat moves closer, your amygdala becomes more activated. Your fear becomes more intense. Your hallucination becomes more vivid and more threatening. The approaching entity is not moving because it is a real entity. It is moving because your fear is intensifying and your hallucination is becoming more vivid. The entity often has a specific form. The most commonly reported form is the shadow person, a dark humanoid figure with no distinct features. This form makes neurological sense. A humanoid figure is what your brain would expect to encounter if there were a conscious being in your room. A humanoid figure is what your social brain is primed to recognize. A dark figure is consistent with the darkness and shadows around you. And a figure without distinct features allows your brain to fill in the details with whatever is most frightening to you personally. Some people see more specific entities: a demon with horns, an alien with large eyes, a creature that is not quite human. These variations reflect cultural and personal differences in what people have learned to fear. But the underlying mechanism is the same. Your brain is generating a hallucination of a conscious being that is attending to you with hostile intent. The specific form that this being takes depends on what your memory has provided as templates for fear. The reason the entity so often seems to have eyes that are looking at you is related to how your brain processes faces. Your brain has specialized systems for processing faces and for detecting eye gaze. These systems are so sensitive that you can detect whether someone is looking at you from a very subtle shift in their gaze. During sleep paralysis, your brain generates an entity with eyes, and those eyes are perceived as being directed at you. This creates the overwhelming sense of being watched, of being the focus of hostile attention. The entity often seems intelligent. It often seems to be aware of you. It often seems to be reacting to your attempts to move or to break free from paralysis. Some people report that when they try to move, the entity seems to respond, pressing down harder or moving closer. This perception of intelligent response reflects the way your brain is interpreting the situation. Your brain is generating not just a visual hallucination, but a full narrative of interaction. You are trying to escape. The entity is preventing you from escaping. This narrative makes sense of your paralysis in a way that is emotionally coherent, even though it is neurologically generated. Breathing in the void. The respiratory system's role in terror. Your breath is one of the most intimate connections you have with the world around you. Every moment of your life, you are breathing in and breathing out. This process is so automatic, so fundamental, that you rarely think about it. But during sleep paralysis, breathing becomes a crisis. Your breath becomes a problem that demands your attention. And this problem is one of the most terrifying aspects of the experience. When you are in REM sleep, your breathing is controlled by your automatic nervous system. Your brain stem, the most ancient part of your brain, is managing your respiration. It is monitoring your blood oxygen levels, your blood carbon dioxide levels, and your blood pH. Based on these measurements, it is adjusting your breathing to maintain the proper balance. This automatic system is remarkably efficient. It keeps you breathing perfectly throughout the night without any conscious effort. But when you become conscious during REM sleep, a problem arises. Your automatic breathing system is still in control. But your conscious mind is now aware of your breathing, and your conscious mind does not trust the automatic system. Your conscious mind wants to take over. It wants to ensure that you are breathing properly. It wants to make sure that you are getting enough oxygen. This creates a conflict between your automatic breathing system and your conscious control of breathing. This conflict manifests as a sensation of difficulty breathing. Your breath becomes shallow. Your breathing becomes rapid and irregular. You feel like you are not getting enough air. You feel like you are suffocating. These sensations are partly real. Your breathing is indeed shallower and more rapid than it would be in normal sleep. But the sensation of suffocation is partly the result of your conscious mind's anxiety about your breathing, which further disrupts the automatic system. Your amygdala amplifies this problem. When your amygdala is activated, it increases your arousal level. This increased arousal causes your breathing to become even more rapid and shallow. Your heart rate increases. Your blood pressure rises. These are all part of the fight or flight response. Your body is preparing to defend itself against the threat that your amygdala perceives. But because you are paralyzed, this preparation cannot be discharged. The energy is building up with nowhere to go. The sensation of pressure on your chest is directly related to this respiratory crisis. As your breathing becomes more labored, as your chest muscles tense in response to your amygdala's activation, you perceive a weight on your chest. You perceive something pressing down on you. This perception is reinforced by the fact that your respiratory muscles are not responding normally. Your intercostal muscles, the muscles between your ribs, are not functioning with their usual freedom. Your diaphragm is working, but it is working in isolation, without the coordinated support of your other respiratory muscles. What makes this respiratory component so frightening is that it directly triggers your survival instincts. Your brain has evolved to treat the inability to breathe as one of the most critical emergencies. Suffocation is one of the most primal threats. Your brain will do almost anything to ensure that you continue to breathe. So when your brain perceives a threat to your breathing, it mobilizes your most powerful survival systems. Panic becomes inevitable. Terror becomes unavoidable. Yet here is the paradox. You are breathing. Even though it feels like you cannot breathe, your lungs are functioning. Your blood is being oxygenated. Your automatic respiratory system is doing its job. You will not suffocate. The danger is not real, even though it feels absolutely real. Your body is protecting you, even as your mind perceives an attack on your ability to survive. The respiratory component of sleep paralysis often leads people to believe that the entity is physically pressing on them. A demon is sitting on their chest. An alien is suffocating them. An invisible force is crushing their ability to breathe. These interpretations make sense given the sensations being experienced. The pressure is real. The breathing difficulty is real. The interpretation of these sensations as being caused by an external entity is the brain's attempt to make sense of something that is fundamentally confusing and disorienting. Understanding the respiratory component of sleep paralysis can be particularly reassuring. It reveals that the sensation of suffocation, while terrifying, is not a sign of actual danger. Your body is managing your breathing. Your automatic systems are working. The sensation of difficulty breathing is a symptom of the state you are in, not a sign that you are in mortal danger. This knowledge can help you survive these episodes with less terror, even if the sensations remain intense. Some people find that focusing on their breathing during sleep paralysis can help them regain a sense of control. By consciously observing their breath, by becoming aware that they are indeed breathing, they can begin to separate the sensation of breathing difficulty from the reality of breathing. They can observe the panic without being entirely consumed by it. This is not easy, but it is possible. And understanding how your respiratory system is functioning during sleep paralysis is the first step toward regaining a sense of agency in the face of terror. Cultural echoes. Why different cultures see different demons. In medieval Europe, the entity that appeared during sleep paralysis was called the incubus. It was a demon that sat upon sleepers, particularly women, and attempted to seduce or assault them. In Islamic tradition, the entity is known as the jinn, a being made of fire and air that can possess humans or appear to them. In Japanese folklore, the entity is the kanashibari, a state of paralysis caused by a spirit. In modern America, the entity is often the shadow person, a dark humanoid figure with no distinct features. In contemporary culture influenced by science fiction, the entity is sometimes an alien, conducting experiments on abductees. These different entities are not the result of different neurological mechanisms. The brain of a medieval European functions the same way as the brain of a contemporary American or a traditional Japanese person. The same neural systems are involved, the same amygdala activation occurs, the same prefrontal cortex silencing happens. The same hallucinations are generated. Yet the specific form of the entity varies dramatically based on culture. This variation is explained by the role of memory and cultural knowledge in constructing hallucinations. Your brain does not generate hallucinations from nothing. It generates them from the materials available in your memory. If you have been taught stories about demons, if you have seen images of demons, if demons are part of your cultural framework for understanding supernatural threats, then your brain will construct a demon. If you have been exposed to science fiction narratives about alien abduction, if you have seen images of aliens, if aliens are part of your cultural framework for understanding threats from beyond the normal world, then your brain will construct an alien. Cultural transmission of sleep paralysis interpretations happens through multiple channels. Religious teaching provides frameworks for understanding the experience. Art and literature provide visual templates. Personal testimony from others in your community provides narratives that shape expectations. When a young person in a culture with strong demon beliefs experiences sleep paralysis for the first time, they are not starting from a blank slate. They are bringing to the experience all the cultural knowledge they have absorbed about what demons are, what they look like, how they behave, what they want. This is not to say that the experience is culturally constructed in the sense that it is not real. The hallucination is real. The fear is real. The paralysis is real. But the interpretation of what the hallucination represents is culturally shaped. The same neurological phenomenon is being interpreted through different cultural lenses. The incubus of medieval Europe provides an interesting example. The incubus was typically depicted as a demon that sat on sleepers and had sexual intentions. This interpretation reflects the cultural concerns of medieval Europe. It reflects beliefs about demonic forces and their interest in human sexuality. It reflects gender dynamics, in which women were seen as particularly vulnerable to supernatural seduction. But the underlying experience was the same experience that people have today: paralysis, hallucination, sensation of pressure, sense of presence. The interpretation of these sensations as a demonic seduction is culturally specific, but the sensations themselves are universal. In cultures where possession is a recognized phenomenon, sleep paralysis is often interpreted as an attempted possession. The entity is not just appearing, it is trying to enter your body, to take control of you, to inhabit you. This interpretation reflects cultural beliefs about how supernatural entities interact with humans. But again, the underlying experience is the same. The hallucination, the paralysis, the sense of presence are universal. The interpretation is culturally specific. Modern Western culture, influenced by science fiction and the scientific worldview, has generated new interpretations of sleep paralysis. The alien abduction narrative has become increasingly common in Western reports of sleep paralysis. People report being abducted by aliens, being taken aboard spacecraft, being subjected to medical examinations. These reports have the same structure as traditional demon visitations. There is paralysis, there is a sense of presence, there is a hallucination of an entity, but the entity is interpreted through the lens of science fiction rather than religious tradition. What is particularly interesting is that the alien abduction narrative is relatively recent. It became prominent only in the latter half of the 20th century, after science fiction had become widespread in Western culture. Before this period, Western reports of sleep paralysis were more likely to be interpreted as demonic or as simple nightmares. The alien interpretation emerged as science fiction became more prominent in the cultural imagination. This suggests that the specific form of the hallucination is indeed influenced by cultural knowledge and expectation. The shadow person, the most common entity reported in contemporary Western sleep paralysis experiences, is interesting because it is less specific than traditional demons or aliens. It is a dark figure with no distinct features. This may reflect the more secular, less religiously committed nature of contemporary Western culture. In the absence of strong religious frameworks for interpretation, the brain generates a more generic entity, a dark figure, a shadow, something threatening but not specifically identifiable. Understanding the cultural variation in sleep paralysis interpretations is liberating in several ways. First, it reveals that the specific form of the entity is not a sign of anything supernatural or specifically dangerous. The entity is a product of how your brain interprets hallucinations, and how you interpret hallucinations is shaped by your cultural knowledge. Second, it suggests that changing your cultural framework might change your experience. If you learn about sleep paralysis as a neurological phenomenon rather than a supernatural event, your brain might generate different interpretations of the sensations you experience. Third, it reveals that across all cultures and all time periods, humans have experienced the same underlying phenomenon. This universality suggests that sleep paralysis is not a sign of individual pathology or individual weakness. It is a universal feature of human neurology, the chemistry of dread, neurotransmitters, and the fear response. Your brain is a chemical system. It is made of neurons, yes, but it is the chemicals that flow between these neurons that create thought, emotion, and perception. These chemicals are called neurotransmitters, and they are the messengers of your nervous system. Different neurotransmitters produce different effects. Some create calm, some create excitement, some create fear, some create peace. During sleep paralysis, the chemistry of your brain is dramatically altered, and this alteration is directly responsible for the intensity of your fear. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter that is involved in attention, arousal, and the fight or flight response. During normal waking, norepinephrine levels are moderate, allowing you to be alert but not hypervigilant. During REM sleep, norepinephrine levels are very low. This allows your muscles to relax and your mind to enter the world of dreams. But when you awaken during REM sleep, your norepinephrine levels begin to rise. You become alert, your attention sharpens, your arousal increases. But here is the problem. Your brain is still bathed in the neurochemistry of REM sleep. Your serotonin levels are still low. Your acetylcholine levels are still high, supporting the vivid sensory experiences of dreaming. Your brain is in a state of chemical confusion. It is partially in the chemistry of waking and partially in the chemistry of sleeping, and this chemical confusion creates the perfect conditions for fear. Adrenaline, also called epinephrine, is the neurotransmitter of emergency. When your amygdala detects threat, it triggers the release of adrenaline. Adrenaline causes your heart to race, your blood pressure to rise, your breathing to become rapid and shallow. It causes your muscles to tense. It heightens your sensory perception. It narrows your focus. All of these effects are useful if you are actually facing a threat and need to fight or flee. But during sleep paralysis, you cannot fight and you cannot flee. The adrenaline is building up with nowhere to go. Cortisol is a stress hormone that is released when your amygdala activates. Cortisol prepares your body for sustained stress. It shifts energy away from digestion and reproduction and towards survival systems. It enhances memory formation, particularly memory of threatening events. This is useful if you are facing a real threat and need to remember what happened so you can avoid it in the future. But during sleep paralysis, cortisol is being released in response to a threat that does not exist. Your body is preparing for a sustained emergency that is not actually occurring. Glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. It increases the firing rate of neurons. During sleep paralysis, glutamate levels become elevated, particularly in the amygdala. This causes the amygdala to become hyperactive. The fear circuits of your brain are firing intensely. The threat detection systems are on maximum alert. Everything that your brain perceives is being filtered through the lens of fear. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is associated with calm, well-being, and emotional regulation. During REM sleep, serotonin levels are very low. This is why you cannot simply think your way out of fear during sleep paralysis. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that would allow you to regulate your emotions, to calm yourself, to think rationally. But it is not available. Your brain is without the chemical tools that would normally allow it to moderate fear. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It calms neural activity. It reduces anxiety. It promotes relaxation. During sleep paralysis, GABA levels are low. This means that the inhibitory systems that would normally keep your amygdala in check are not functioning. Your amygdala is hyperactive, and there are no chemical brakes to slow it down. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. During sleep paralysis, dopamine levels may be disrupted. This contributes to the sense of helplessness and despair that often accompanies these episodes. You cannot act, you cannot escape, and the neurochemistry that would normally motivate action is not available. The combination of all these chemical changes creates a brain that is perfectly primed for fear. Your amygdala is hyperactive. Your threat detection systems are on maximum alert. Your emotional regulation systems are offline. Your rational thinking systems are dormant. Your stress hormones are flooding your body, and your muscles are paralyzed, preventing you from discharging this stress through action. This is why you cannot simply calm yourself during sleep paralysis. It is not a matter of willpower or rational thought. Your brain is in a state of neurochemical emergency. The chemicals that would allow you to think rationally, to regulate your emotions, to calm yourself, are not available. You are experiencing fear not because you are weak or because you are prone to anxiety, but because your brain is in a state of neurochemical imbalance that is perfectly designed to generate fear. Understanding this neurochemistry can be reassuring. It reveals that your fear during sleep paralysis is not a personal failing. It is not a sign of cowardice or weakness. It is the inevitable result of specific neurochemical conditions. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is responding in the only way it can respond given its chemical state. And knowing that this chemical state is temporary, knowing that it will eventually resolve as your brain returns to normal waking chemistry, can provide some comfort in the midst of terror. Time distortion. Why seconds feel like hours. One of the most distinctive features of sleep paralysis is the distortion of time. An episode that lasts only a few seconds can feel like it lasts for minutes or even hours. You emerge from the experience feeling as though you have been trapped for an eternity, only to look at the clock and discover that only 30 seconds have passed. This time distortion is not an error or a failure of perception. It is a direct result of how your brain processes time during states of extreme emotion. Time perception is not a simple, straightforward process. Your brain does not have a clock. It does not measure time in the way a watch measures time. Instead, your brain estimates time based on several factors. One important factor is the number of events that occur during a time interval. If many things happen, your brain estimates that a long time has passed. If few things happen, your brain estimates that a short time has passed. Another important factor is your emotional state. When you are afraid, when your amygdala is activated, your brain processes time differently than it does when you are calm. During sleep paralysis, your brain is processing an enormous number of events. You are hallucinating. You are perceiving threats. You are trying to move and failing. You are experiencing intense fear. You are experiencing physical sensations of pressure and difficulty breathing. All of these events are occurring simultaneously. Your brain is processing all of this information at once, and because so many events are occurring, your brain estimates that a long time must be passing. The activation of your amygdala also contributes to time distortion. When your amygdala is activated, it shifts your brain into a different mode of operation. This mode is designed to slow down your perception of time. Why? Because when you are facing a threat, it is useful to perceive time as moving slowly. A slow perception of time gives you more subjective time to respond to the threat. It allows you to process more information in what is objectively a short period. This is why people in car accidents often report that the accident seemed to happen in slow motion. Their amygdala was activated, and their brain was slowing down their subjective experience of time. During sleep paralysis, your amygdala is maximally activated. Your brain is operating in the most extreme threat detection mode. Your subjective experience of time is therefore dramatically slowed. Seconds feel like minutes. Minutes feel like hours. You experience what feels like an eternity of terror, even though the episode lasts only a brief time. There is also the factor of memory. During sleep paralysis, your brain is in a state that is not optimal for memory formation, but it is in a state that is optimal for emotional memory formation. The emotions you experience during sleep paralysis are being encoded intensely. The memories of the experience are being marked as important, as significant, as emotionally charged, and emotional memories seem to last longer. An event that was emotionally intense seems to have taken more time than an event that was emotionally neutral. Even if both events took the same amount of objective time, the distortion of time during sleep paralysis can actually be frightening in itself. You are paralyzed. You are hallucinating. You are terrified. And time seems to be stretching. The fear that the episode will never end, that you will be trapped forever, becomes part of the fear itself. The time distortion amplifies the terror. It makes the episode feel more intense, more prolonged, more unbearable. Yet understanding time distortion can be helpful. When you emerge from a sleep paralysis episode and discover that only 30 seconds have passed, you can recognize that your subjective experience of time was distorted. You can recognize that the episode felt much longer than it actually was. This recognition can help you survive future episodes. When you are in the midst of sleep paralysis and time seems to be stretching infinitely, You can remind yourself that time is being distorted. The episode will end. It will not last forever. The terror you are experiencing is genuine, but the duration of the episode is much shorter than it feels. Time distortion also explains why sleep paralysis episodes often feel worse than they actually are. Not only is the fear intense, but the fear is stretched across what feels like an extended period. The combination of intense fear and the subjective experience of prolonged duration creates an experience that feels unbearable. Yet when you look at the clock, you discover that the objective duration was brief. This discrepancy between subjective and objective time is one of the defining features of sleep paralysis. Some people report that they can use their awareness of time distortion to help themselves survive episodes. By reminding themselves that time is being distorted, that the episode will likely be brief despite feeling long, they can maintain a thread of rational thought even in the midst of terror. This rational thought does not eliminate the fear or the paralysis, but it provides a context within which the fear can be understood. The fear is real. The time distortion is real, but neither one will last forever. The bridge between worlds, reconciling science and experience. You stand at a threshold. On one side is the world of science, of neurobiology, of neurochemistry. This world tells you that what you experienced during sleep paralysis was a hallucination generated by your own brain. It was a result of specific neurological conditions. It was caused by the activation of your amygdala and the silencing of your prefrontal cortex. It was a product of your memory systems retrieving fear and your sensory systems generating perception without external input. In this world, the entity you encountered was not real. It was your own mind attacking itself. On the other side is the world of experience, of feeling, of perception. In this world, what you experienced was utterly real. You were paralyzed. You could not move. You experienced pressure on your chest. You could not breathe. You felt the presence of something watching you. You perceived an entity. In this world, the entity seemed real because it was real. You did not imagine it. You perceived it. How do you reconcile these two worlds? How do you hold both truths at once? How do you understand that your experience was both neurologically generated and absolutely real? The key is to understand that these two descriptions are not contradictory. They are complementary. They are two different ways of describing the same phenomenon. When you understand the neurobiology of sleep paralysis, you are not denying the reality of your experience. You are explaining how your brain generated that experience. A hallucination is a real perception. This is crucial to understand. When you hallucinate, you are not making something up. You are not imagining something and pretending that it is real. You are perceiving something. Your sensory systems are generating a perception. Your brain is processing that perception. You are experiencing that perception as real. The hallucination is real. It is just not externally caused. It is internally generated. Your body's responses during sleep paralysis are also real. The pressure on your chest is a real sensation. Your breathing difficulty is a real experience. Your fear is a real emotion. These are not illusions, they are not tricks. They are genuine experiences generated by your nervous system. Understanding that they are neurologically generated does not make them less real. It explains how your body generated them. The presence you felt is also real in a particular sense. Your brain generated a perception of presence. This perception is real. It is a genuine neural phenomenon. What is not real is the external entity that caused the perception. There was no demon in your room. There was no alien. There was no supernatural being. But your brain's generation of the perception of such a being is very real. It is a real neural process. Understanding the neurobiology of sleep paralysis can actually deepen your appreciation for the complexity and power of your mind. Your brain is capable of generating extraordinarily convincing perceptions without external input. Your brain can create hallucinations that are as vivid and as real-seeming as actual perceptions. Your brain can generate such intense fear that you experience physical symptoms like pressure on your chest and difficulty breathing. Your brain is far more powerful and more complex than you might have realized. This power is not something to fear, it is something to respect. Your brain is capable of extraordinary things. In sleep paralysis, it is using this power in a way that is frightening. But this same power is what allows you to think, to feel, to create. to love, to imagine, to dream. The brain that generates terrifying hallucinations during sleep paralysis is the same brain that generates all the beauty and meaning in your life. The bridge between science and experience is understanding that your experience is the subjective side of the neurobiology. The neurobiology is the objective description of what is happening in your brain. Your experience is what it feels like to be that brain in that state. Both are real, both are important, and understanding both allows you to integrate your experience into your understanding of yourself. When you experience sleep paralysis, you can now understand that what you are experiencing is not a sign of mental illness. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not a supernatural event. It is a neurological state in which your brain's normal integration between consciousness and action has been disrupted. It is a state in which your emotional systems are in control and your rational systems are offline. It is a state that is temporary and that will resolve. And understanding this allows you to experience the fear without being entirely consumed by it. Breaking the paralysis. What your body learns during these episodes, sleep paralysis ends. This is the most important thing to remember. No matter how terrifying the experience is, no matter how real the entity seems, no matter how impossible it feels that you will ever move again, the paralysis ends. Your consciousness returns to your body. Your voluntary control returns. The episode passes, and then you are left with the aftermath, with the memory of terror, with the residue of fear. But something else happens during and after sleep paralysis. Your body is learning. Your nervous system is being shaped by the experience. Your brain is being changed. And these changes can be either positive or negative, depending on how you respond to the experience. During sleep paralysis, your body is in a state of maximal stress. Every system is activated. Your sympathetic nervous system, the system that generates the fight or flight response, is in full activation. Your heart is racing. Your blood pressure is elevated. Your breathing is rapid and shallow. Your muscles are tense. Your stress hormones are flooding your body. All of this is happening while you are completely unable to act. This is a profound state of frustration for your nervous system. Your body is prepared to fight or flee, but you cannot do either. The energy that has been mobilized for action cannot be discharged. It builds up, it intensifies, and then, eventually, the episode ends. Your paralysis releases, your voluntary control returns, and your body can finally act. What your body learns from this experience depends on how you respond. If you respond with panic, if you struggle against the paralysis, if you try to force yourself to move, you are reinforcing the pattern of fear and struggle. Your nervous system is learning that sleep paralysis is a situation that requires maximum fight or flight response. Your body is becoming sensitized to the experience. Future episodes may become more intense because your nervous system has learned that this state is one of maximal danger. But if you can respond differently, if you can observe the paralysis without struggling against it, if you can acknowledge the fear without being consumed by it, you are teaching your nervous system a different lesson. You are learning that sleep paralysis is frightening, but it is not dangerous. You are learning that you can survive the experience without fighting it. You are learning to tolerate the discomfort without amplifying the fear. This is not easy. It is not a matter of simple willpower, but it is possible. And people who have learned to respond to sleep paralysis with acceptance rather than struggle often report that the episodes become less intense over time. The fear may persist, but it becomes more manageable. The paralysis may persist, but it becomes less terrifying. The hallucinations may persist, but they become less convincing. One technique that can help is to focus on your breathing. During sleep paralysis, your breathing is often chaotic, but you are still breathing. By consciously observing your breath, by becoming aware that you are indeed breathing, you can begin to regain a sense of control. You are not controlling your breathing in the sense of changing it. Rather, you are observing it. You are reminding yourself that your automatic systems are working, that your body is functioning, that you are safe. Another technique is to move the smallest parts of your body. Often the paralysis is not complete. You might be able to wiggle your fingers or your toes, even though you cannot move your larger muscles. By focusing on these small movements, by gradually moving progressively larger parts of your body, you can eventually break out of the paralysis. This process takes time, but it works. What your body learns from successfully breaking out of paralysis, or from surviving an episode through acceptance and observation, is that you are resilient. You are capable of surviving intense fear. You are capable of tolerating discomfort. You are capable of remaining conscious and aware even when your body is not responding to your will. These lessons extend beyond sleep paralysis. They shape your overall resilience in the face of difficulty. People who have experienced sleep paralysis often report that they are less afraid of other frightening experiences. They have experienced something that felt absolutely terrifying and survived it. They have experienced something that felt like they were in mortal danger and emerged unharmed. This knowledge, this lived experience, can provide a foundation of confidence that extends into other areas of life. The body also learns about the conditions that precede sleep paralysis. Many people find that sleep paralysis is more likely to occur when they are stressed, sleep-deprived, or sleeping in an unusual position. By becoming aware of these conditions, by modifying them when possible, you can reduce the frequency of episodes. Your nervous system is learning what circumstances are conducive to sleep paralysis, and you can use this knowledge to prevent episodes from occurring in the first place. The wisdom in fear. What sleep paralysis reveals about your mind. Fear is not your enemy, This is perhaps the most important realization that can come from understanding sleep paralysis. Fear is a system that your brain has evolved to keep you alive. Fear is information. Fear is a message from your nervous system that something requires your attention. During sleep paralysis, fear is telling you something important about the nature of consciousness and the nature of your mind. Sleep paralysis reveals that consciousness is not a simple, unified phenomenon. You are not simply conscious or unconscious. Consciousness exists in degrees. Consciousness can be partial. Consciousness can be dissociated from action. Consciousness can exist in a state where your body is not responding to your will. This is a profound revelation about the nature of what you are. Most of the time you experience consciousness as unified with action. You think, and your body moves. You perceive, and you respond. Consciousness and action are so intertwined that you experience them as one phenomenon. But sleep paralysis reveals that this unity is not fundamental. It is a construction, an integration that your brain creates under normal circumstances. When that integration breaks down, when consciousness becomes separated from action, you experience something that is profoundly disorienting. This separation reveals something important about how your brain works. Your consciousness, your sense of self, your awareness is not generated by a single part of your brain. It is generated by the integration of multiple systems. When those systems are not properly integrated, consciousness becomes strange. It becomes partial. It becomes something that you do not recognize as yourself. Sleep paralysis also reveals something important about memory and identity. The entity that appears during sleep paralysis is constructed from your own memories, your own fears, your own psychological history. In a very real sense, the demon you encounter is a part of yourself. It is your own mind attacking itself. It is your own fear made manifest. This is both terrifying and profound. It reveals that within your mind, there are forces that you do not consciously identify with, that you do not experience as part of yourself, but that are nonetheless expressions of your own nervous system. This has implications for how you understand yourself. You are not a simple unified self. You are a collection of systems, some of which are conscious and some of which are not. Some of these systems can work together in harmony. Some of these systems can come into conflict. Your conscious mind, your rational self, is only part of who you are. There are deeper systems, older systems, more primitive systems that generate emotion, that generate fear, that generate survival responses. These systems are not your enemy, they are part of you. Sleep paralysis also reveals something important about the nature of perception and reality. Your perception is not a simple representation of the external world. Your perception is constructed. It is built from sensory input, yes, but also from memory, expectation, emotion, and the current state of your nervous system. During sleep paralysis, your perception is constructed in a way that generates hallucinations. But this process of construction is happening all the time. Even in normal waking life, your perception is constructed. Even in normal waking life, you are not perceiving reality directly. You are perceiving a construction that your brain has built based on sensory input and internal states. This realization can be both humbling and liberating. It is humbling because it reveals that your perception, which feels so direct and so real, is actually a construction. You are not perceiving reality as it is. You are perceiving a model of reality that your brain has built. But it is also liberating because it reveals that if your perception is constructed, then you have some capacity to influence that construction. You can learn to perceive differently. You can learn to interpret your experience differently. Sleep paralysis also reveals something important about the nature of time and consciousness. During sleep paralysis, time becomes distorted. Your subjective experience of time does not match objective time. This reveals that time is not a simple, external thing that you perceive. Time is constructed by your brain. Your sense of how much time has passed is based on the number of events you have processed, on your emotional state, on the state of your nervous system. Time is not objective. It is subjective. It is constructed. Finally, sleep paralysis reveals something important about the nature of suffering and survival. You can experience intense suffering and survive. You can experience something that feels absolutely terrifying and emerge unharmed. You can experience something that feels unbearable and bear it. This is wisdom. This is knowledge that is written into your nervous system. This is knowledge that you can carry forward into other areas of your life. When you face other difficulties, when you face other fears, you can remember that you have survived something worse. You have survived something that felt absolutely terrifying. You are more resilient than you knew. Returning to stillness, integration, understanding, and peaceful sleep. You have traveled through the landscape of your mind. You have visited the ancient amygdala that generates fear. You have encountered the silent prefrontal cortex that cannot reason. You have explored the memory systems that construct hallucinations. You have understood the respiratory systems that create sensations of suffocation. You have learned about the neurochemistry of dread. You have recognized how different cultures interpret the same phenomenon. You have discovered that time is constructed by your nervous system. And you have learned that within your mind, there are forces that you do not fully understand, but that you can learn to live with. This knowledge is the foundation for transformation. Understanding sleep paralysis does not eliminate it. Understanding sleep paralysis does not make the fear disappear, but understanding sleep paralysis changes your relationship to it. It changes how you experience it. It changes what it means. When you experience sleep paralysis again, and you will now know what is happening. You will know that your amygdala is activated and your prefrontal cortex is silent. You will know that your memory systems are constructing hallucinations from your own fears. You will know that the pressure on your chest is caused by your respiratory system in conflict with your paralysis. You will know that the entity you perceive is a hallucination, a genuine perception generated by your own mind, but not an external threat. This knowledge does not eliminate the fear, but it provides context for the fear. It provides meaning. And within that context, within that meaning, there is a path to peace. The path begins with acceptance. Accept that you are paralyzed. Accept that you are afraid. Accept that there is an entity in the darkness. Do not struggle. Do not fight. Do not try to move. Simply accept. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means recognizing the reality of the situation without adding struggle to it. As you accept the paralysis, your nervous system will begin to calm. Your amygdala will begin to recognize that there is no external threat. Your breathing will begin to normalize. The pressure on your chest will begin to ease. The hallucination will begin to fade, not because you have forced it to, but because you have stopped fighting it. Within this acceptance, there is also observation. Observe your breath. Observe the sensations in your body. Observe the hallucination. Observe your fear. But observe from a place of distance. You are not the fear. You are the awareness of the fear. You are not the paralysis. You are the awareness of the paralysis. This distinction, this creation of distance between your awareness and your experience, can provide a sense of space within which you can breathe. As you observe, You may find that you can move small parts of your body, your fingers, your toes, your eyes. These small movements are victories. They are proof that the paralysis is not complete. They are the beginning of your return to full control. Gradually, as you continue to move these small parts, the paralysis will release, your larger muscles will respond, your full control will return. When the episode ends, when you have fully awakened, when you are moving freely again, take a moment to recognize what you have survived. You have experienced something that felt absolutely terrifying. You have remained conscious throughout. You have maintained awareness, even in the midst of fear. You have emerged unharmed. This is remarkable. This is an achievement. As you return to sleep, remember that sleep paralysis is rare. Most nights, you will sleep peacefully. Most nights, you will pass through REM sleep without becoming conscious. Most nights, your brain will integrate consciousness and paralysis seamlessly. Most nights, you will sleep without fear. Sleep paralysis is an exception, not a rule. It is an unusual state that your brain occasionally enters, not a normal part of your sleep. But if sleep paralysis does occur again, you are now equipped to face it. You understand what is happening. You understand that it is temporary. You understand that you are safe. You understand that your mind is both creating the terror and capable of surviving the terror. You are not at the mercy of your amygdala. You are not without resources. You have knowledge. You have understanding. You have the capacity to observe your experience without being entirely consumed by it. As you settle into sleep, remember that your brain is remarkable. It is capable of generating entire worlds in dreams. It is capable of generating hallucinations so vivid that they feel more real than reality. It is capable of generating fear so intense that it feels like you are in mortal danger. This is not a sign of pathology. This is a sign of power. Your brain is powerful, and power, when understood and respected, becomes wisdom. The journey that you have taken through this exploration is not complete. Understanding sleep paralysis is an ongoing process. Each experience will teach you something new. Each encounter with paralysis and hallucination will deepen your knowledge. Each survival will increase your resilience. Over time, sleep paralysis becomes less frightening. Over time, it becomes less frequent. Over time, it becomes something that you can encounter with relative calm, knowing that it will pass, knowing that you will emerge unharmed, knowing that you are capable of surviving whatever your mind generates. Sleep now. Rest. Know that your brain will take care of you. Your automatic systems will keep you breathing. Your protective systems will keep you safe. Your consciousness will eventually return to the simple, unified state that you know in normal waking. And when you close your eyes, when you surrender to sleep, remember that you are not surrendering to fear. You are surrendering to rest. You are surrendering to the natural process of sleep, a process that has sustained human life for millions of years. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the architecture of fear and the wisdom of the nervous system. If this exploration has brought you understanding, if it has brought you peace, I would appreciate a like and a subscription to the Relaxing Science channel. Also, please let us know if you would like to see more content exploring the mysteries of consciousness, the nature of perception, and the profound wisdom that exists within your own mind. The threshold between waking and dreaming is a sacred space. It is a place where science and mystery meet. It is a place where your mind touches something that feels infinite. And it is a place where, if you can approach with understanding rather than fear, you can discover profound truths about what you are and what you are capable of. Sleep well, dream peacefully, and know that within you exists a mind of extraordinary power and extraordinary beauty. End of screenplay total.